Hello. Yes. Hello. We're back again and again
and again
and again and again. So, I'm Brittany Williams. You're hot.
Are you hot?
Like a smidge, not like crazy hot. You can turn the air on. I have long sleeves.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be me and my ADHD to not have to jump up after we hit record?
It's okay. It's fine. It is fine. So, welcome to the Brown Skin Blueprint. I'm Brittany Williams.
And I am Shawana Ward.
Want to introduce our topic?
And today, we are going to be talking about...
I'm going to jump roll.
I'm feeling it today. Spirituality.
Ooh.
Now, I feel like we need to say this is in no way, shape, or form education.
Okay, yeah.
We're not trying to persuade anybody's beliefs in any way.
We are not religious leaders.
No, not at all. Not at all. We're literally just going to talk about how spirituality, what it looks like in our lives, if it's helpful or not at all, our viewpoints, those type of things. So if you're into that type of thing, or if you're interested, or if you've ever looked at any of our posts and wondered what the hell do they believe in, this is a good episode for you.
You know what's crazy? I feel like it's very telling about our past that we had to give a disclaimer.
Yes.
For all the episodes, of all the stuff we have discussed, had to give a disclaimer for this. Yeah, so we're here. This is where we are current day versus, growing up and what we were taught and all that jazz.
Yes. Which is the perfect segue, Britt, for the first thing we kind of wanted to talk about, and that is what spirituality looked like growing up for both of us.
Okay.
You want me to start? Or you want
Sure, you can go.
Okay. So, starting for me, it was very expected, what I can say, from growing up black. Of course, we went to a Christian church. As far back as I remember, the first church we went to, I think, was called Agape, and it was in Virginia Beach. It wasn't even in a church yet. We were having it in like a school in the auditorium, but it was Christian. And I want to say that Agape was Baptist, but I can't remember, because guys, with Christianity, you got different denominations.
Yeah.
And so as I grew older, I remember going from Baptist to non-denominational with my father when we were living in Georgia. And then when I moved back to Virginia, I was in a Kojic church. And Kojic kind of, I feel like, helped me find my spiritual gifts. But I probably have the most trauma from the denomination of Kojic.
That's why I said,
So, yeah, that was me growing up. We went by the Bible. My dad even had us doing Bible studies on Sundays. At one point, we would read together. Of course, we prayed together. And along with Christianity, there were a bunch of rules. So I grew up with a lot of fears. I would say that.
Where did your was it one side or both side that your religious spirituality came from?
Dad's side.
Okay.
With my mom. So I talk about it often. Both of my parents were both drug addicted at one point in their lives. But with my mom, for her, it was as far back as I can remember. So with my dad, with him, I remember it in spurts. When he was sober, it was a very strict and religious household. Like, it was two totally different people, literally. Gotcha. So I only ever saw that model. And I take that back. My grandmother went to church, but she didn't practice it. It literally, I just watched her go to church. Sometimes I went with her, and she didn't really engage in worship. She would usher, but she literally was there. You could tell, because she was trained her whole life that you're supposed to go to church. Like,
Gotcha.
There was no, I watched my dad worship. With my grandma, I saw nothing, except for her going. So yeah.
Gotcha.
What about you?
Kind of sort of similar. My spirituality, religious stuff came from my dad's side. That's who taught me how to pray. That's who took me to church. That's who, I read the Bible with. My mother believes in God, Jesus, all that stuff. But I want to say my maternal grandfather went to church. But on that side, they just weren't really like church goers.
Got you.
So that part of it wasn't passed down. I will say that I do feel like they're faith-based, based on things they said, things I've seen them do. But I just think that because it wasn't drilled in them that they had to go to church, that, they did that. So my dad was the one who taught me everything about, you know, church and religion. So when I went to church with him as a child, I went to a Methodist church.
Okay.
So I kind of have I don't want to say it's the unique experience, but as I grew up, a lot of my friends or people I encounter went to like Baptist church or like Kojic. Mm-hmm. So like the shouting and all that stuff, Methodists they don't do that.
Mm-hmm. See, I don't think I've ever been to a Methodist church.
It's very slow.
Okay.
Very short service, like an hour and a half. Then as I got older, I wanted to go to church with my cousins. They went to African Methodist. So here I am, I'm still in Methodist lane. But it is slightly different because obviously it has African in front of it. So it is more black, quote unquote, because if you know anybody who is a Methodist, they usually are white people.
Yeah.
White people are usually Methodist. But African Methodist, it was kind of the same though. They didn't do a whole lot of shouting. They praised God, but it wasn't a lot of the hoopla. We weren't in service for 3 hours. It was still like the hour and a half thing.
I call it theatrics. Less theatrics.
It's just
not to offend anybody.
No, but really, we were just kind of there. Yeah. So a lot of, what would I say? I think in my teen years, me really being into church, I think I saw stuff that kind of deterred me from church. But still very much so, a lot of things that my father ingrained in me that are not religion specific, I feel like I hold on to current day. But he definitely was my leader of, you know, this is basically how you operate, this is what you do. I don't feel like we followed a whole lot of rules because he has the recovering addict aspect of it too. So I do feel like, you know, for him that was like his saving grace. Yeah. But I also think denomination has something to do with it. Methodist has their rules just like anybody else, but I don't feel like we or they, whatever, I don't feel like it was as strict. Like
it won't law.
No.
You know, in some churches, if you mess up, like they'll potentially kick you out.
Yeah, like it wasn't that heavy. Yeah. So as I became an adult and I've had different conversations with my friends about things they've experienced, I'm kind of like, damn, my church hurt ain't got nothing on yours. Like, what in the world? So yeah, Methodists are like laid back. So yeah.
Okay. So that made me think about how you said you got your spirituality mostly from your dad's side. With my dad too, I watched him kind of research what he wanted to believe in. Because at one point, I can remember only hearing, he used to listen to Farrakhan all the time.
Gotcha.
I know he was researching Islam and the Muslim, is Muslim, I hate using terms. I say it wrong.
I don't think it's synonymous. Okay. I think that there are different aspects that make them different, but I think if you're not in it, I do think people use them like they're interchangeable, but I don't think they are.
Okay, so I know he studied Islam.
Okay.
And so he used to study the Quran, and then at one point he was after his Christian phase, because I think he didn't like the denominations either. That's when we went to non-denominational, which it was all white people. There was one black family, I think, after we got there.
Okay.
So we did that, and that was why I felt most connected. That's when I felt like I started figuring out, I have gifts. Like, I feel like, you know, God does this through me or speaks through me. And then Kojic was like, you got gifts, and we finna beat it out of you. Not beat it out of you, but like, we're gonna use it, we're gonna whip you in the shape, and this is how you're supposed to do. But I think because of his ability, when he seen stuff went right, he was gone.
Gotcha.
Like, if he saw that this don't even feel like love, which God is supposed to be preaching, he would remove himself. And so my dad has always been a seeker of truth. I feel like that hit me. Because current day, I would say, while I still have a lot of the same values that Christianity taught me, or from different denominations, I would say that I used to be afraid to go against even what the Bible said.
Yeah.
Like, you're not supposed to question God. You're not supposed to do any of that. But current day, because of, I think, watching him do that and watching him grow as a person, I see that, I need to back up what people are telling me this is supposed to be. And now current day, I think both of us have a totally different viewpoint and standpoint about spirituality. Completely.
by a long shot. Damn, what did you say? I was gonna say something too. When we were talking about trying to figure out if Muslim and Islam are interchangeable, one of the things that I would constantly ask my dad, and he had the answers, but he didn't. Early on, one thing that I didn't understand, I didn't understand the divide.
Right.
So I think that was kind of like just my first inkling to, like, what is this? Like, you know, and one of the things that my dad said that kind of stuck with me, he was like, you know, essentially if you remove, you know, the constructs of it, we pretty much all believe in the same thing. So that is one thing I remember early on that really used to bother me, was that, okay, you're over here, such and such over there, somebody's over there. Y'all talk shit about each other.
But we talking about the same thing.
We're literally, like, we all do the same thing. So I don't understand why somebody's better than such and such, or you shouldn't believe in that, or you, like, that really bothered me, just the divide of it all. I think another thing that was a downside for me was because I was so involved in church as a teenager, like sometimes I would sit in the meetings and stuff, and one thing that was discouraging to me was how money-based church is.
Yes.
And I don't think, you know, I think at the time, I think the leaders were just thinking that, you know, it was great for us to be involved and to see that. But for me, it was kind of like, a lot of money conversation, a lot of disagreement behind money. Another thing I feel like turned me off, Methodist churches, African Methodist churches rotate their pastors.
Yes. Okay.
And one thing that is very off-putting for me, I noticed that when certain pastors, like, okay, when I got to the church I would say grew up in, we had one pastor. Everybody loved him and his wife. When they left, people were very, very upset, which I get, because you do, especially if people are there for you and you feel like, you know, they are really, really, really spiritually in tune, you know, you do get an attachment to them. What I did not like was how pastors who came after him were treated.
Yeah, trying to fill them shoes.
And I feel like, you know, one, you knew this was coming. This is not anything that's a surprise, because this is how, you know, they operate. But two, it's kind of like the very thing you stand on, you're not showing, because just because you don't care for this man or you don't like him, I don't feel like it should be evident.
Right, exactly.
Like, so then it's kind of like, I felt like they pick and choose who they like. Because then after one man came, they didn't like this man that came who was married. I feel like they like gravitated towards him. I love them as a couple. But yeah, I didn't like the, I'ma just, you know, act snooty, or I'm just not gonna engage, like even doing a sermon, because, you know, I don't really,
who I wanna be.
Yeah, like I hated that with a passion.
I think that's what deterred me too. It wasn't even because we can talk about doctrine all day and about how certain, you know, stuff is taken out, but I do want to agree that most religion, if you really research it, it's all a mirror. Literally. Yeah. It's just, most of it is the terms are different. Yeah. But my connection with people in the church is what steered me away, because I saw that it was like, you apply the rules of the word to what makes you feel comfortable, or this don't qualify for you, just these people. And because he's not married, even though he is a very upright person who seems, you know, this seems to be a person who's really called and gifted, but because they're not married, they're not allowed to do so. It was just a lot of things that it did not feel right. Yeah. So when I got pregnant, I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna chuck the douche. I'm not even gonna give y'all the opportunity to like drag me how I've seen y'all drag other women who weren't married and got pregnant. So that was what made me just walk away completely, because I already knew what was coming. And I was
how was that though? Like, just the idea that essentially, you know, these are supposed to be family almost, and to feel like you can't show up you know, as you are, because in their eyes you're like in a situation, or you've sinned, or you know, you're shunned upon. Like, what was that like?
It kind of messed with my head a little bit.
Yeah,
it kind of messed with my head a little bit, but I will say it made me want to find a group, because I didn't feel alone though. Even though I removed myself, I said I know there's other people who've experienced this, and it really yearned for me to want to find a group of people who still was a worshiper like me, who still loved God, who still wanted to really learn these gifts that they had without the condemnation of religion. So it did push me, and I ended up finding those people. So even though that was still, it don't even matter. But that segues, I think, perfectly into the next bullet, like religion versus spirituality. That's when I really started like learning the differences, and that like at the end of the day, like, God is love, and it's about that unconditioned. And when you're receiving love properly and giving it properly, the stuff that they make rules is unnecessary, because you do what's best for you. And you don't involve in stuff that's self-sabotaging. It's not even necessarily about the action, it's the intent behind the action. So I started learning that difference between religion and spirituality. What about you?
I would say for me, it was very unintentional. Excuse me. Like, okay, so once I graduated, I went away to school. So obviously this left me with this, am I going to find a new church? Like, what am I going to do? So I never like attended church or found a church when I went away to school. Sometimes if I just came home, I would go to church. But it put me, that pretty much never stopped. Like, even when I moved back, I was kind of caught between, so do I go to a new church? Do I not? And me and Brandon started going to another church together. But I realized, like, later on in life, when we weren't going to church anymore again, I was missing aspects of church that I enjoyed.
Yes.
But I think it kind of opened my eyes to, are you missing like literally church, like this box of what you have experienced of church, or like do you feel like you're missing your relationship with God? So like I kind of had to examine, like, well, I still pray all the time, you know, I do devotionals, like I still read the Bible, I still, you know, worship God. What really am I like missing that I have to get in a building
to do?
Like, you know, so I think that was kind of the thing for me. Like, when I didn't have that option, or I didn't take the option to like steadily go to church, I had to figure out, like, Brittany, are you literally missing like a construct, or like a doctrine? Or are you missing the spirituality aspect of it? So I think that kind of opened my eyes to, no, Brittany, that's religion, that's not spirituality, or that part of it is religion, that's not God. So current day, I don't have as much weight, or because it used to be burdensome to me. Like, I used to feel guilty, or I used to feel like, oh my God, like I haven't been to church in so long. So I don't feel that anymore, because I feel like I understand more the importance of spirituality versus these ideas and laws that were put in my head that are very much so religion based, and what somebody who is like 90 taught me that I'm supposed to do, and how my life is going to be if I don't do these things. So yeah, I think mine was unintentional, but it definitely led me on a journey to figure out, no, that's religion, that's not spirituality.
Got you. So that sparks me to kind of ask the question. So, well, okay, so I'll say this. For me, and this kind of segues way into the next point about how I implement spirituality current day.
Okay.
So for me, like how you said before, with religion, because of the way that it's given to us, there's like certain stuff you're supposed to do. Like, you're supposed to tithe when you go to church on Sunday every morning, and there's a certain way you're supposed to pray. You're supposed to pray with the group. You're supposed to pray separate. There was like very structured ways of doing things. I have learned that the feeling, or I guess the help that those things are supposed to give you, are supposed to feel more natural.
Okay.
So for me, current day, tithing looks like me investing in myself. Tithing looks like me investing in other people.
Gotcha.
Tithing looks like if I feel led, God tell me to give a homeless man money. It's like where I'm sowing my seed. It's not necessarily about I need to go to this church and at this time on Sunday I'm gonna put this money in this envelope. It's this percentage every single time. Like it's more so about literally like where my heart is sowing things. So I like to give, but I give in different ways, and it's not always about money. So I find that tithing is like just kind of like currency and energy. Like I've learned that, and then even praying while meditating, or it's just a conversation a lot of times. Like my relationship, I let go of like what I felt like had to be structured around it. Spirituality is very much so fluid. So yes. I was going to ask you, do you feel the same? Do you feel like spirituality is more of a daily walk versus something you do? It's just something like a state of living almost.
I do think it's like a very personal walk. Because even when you said tithing, I have I don't want to say I have a negative view of tithing. But I have been in congregations where people are announcing, well, such and such gave this amount, what are you going to do? Or at minimum, this is what you need to be given. And I remember at those moments just like how crushed I felt, because I'm like, you don't know these people's situations to be telling people what they need to be given, or why do you feel the need to announce that, you know, Deacon Williams has given $1,000? Like, why are we talking about who is giving what, how much they're giving? Why are you putting pressure on people to match somebody else's money when they are not in the same living situation? So it's things like that that really have turned me off from this idea that, you know, this is what the Bible says, this is what we're supposed to do. And like you said earlier, just seeing people follow what they see is like, okay, I can make that, I can do that one, so that one's fine. And then shunning other ones that, you know, just because they don't apply to you, you feel like, oh, you know, well, you can't be gay, you know, or you can't cheat or whatever the hell else. So for me, it's really, even when I do devotionals, I'm very specific about how is I don't even know what that's called. The part that's not the Bible verses.
Right. So the
actual, I don't know the actual plan. I don't know, whatever that part is called. Even for me, that has to look a certain way. Like, is this like shame based, or is this kind of like, you know, this kind of open minded? I will say that I think because so many like millennials and whatever they are before us, I don't know if it's Gen X, I think they're Gen X. I think they're Gen X.
Okay.
I think because we kind of changed the wave a little bit, I will say that I don't feel like any plans I read now are shame based. I really feel like they're open. But I think it just saddens me because I really think spirituality is a personal walk. Like, you know, nothing against anybody who goes to church, you know, religiously, or consistently rather, and they're there and they love being in church. Like, I know for some people, just being like hearing the music and seeing certain, like, I know that does a lot for people. So nothing against anybody who has that feeling.
It's the personality again. That might work for you.
Yeah, it might work for them. And I just feel like I don't like for people to feel like their spiritual journey has to be in sync with somebody else's. And I feel like church teaches you that, like, we're all supposed to be on this walk. We all supposed to be at this same point.
It should all look like this.
Yeah, this is how you should get there. And I don't, it just bothers me because I feel like, I just remember times I was pressured or I was like asked certain questions about why I didn't want to do this or why I didn't want to do that. And it was just like, because I don't want to.
And that's it.
Like, why do we have to have a conversation about what I want to do and what I don't want to do as it relates to church? Like, you know, if I'm showing up and I'm doing my part, I don't understand why I have to do certain things to appease you or other people that are in the church. So I just think we have to see spirituality for how it fits us and how it resonates for us. Like you said, it's just certain things during the day. Like, I know that that's God, or I know that God is, has shown up, or I know that God is speaking to me directly. I don't necessarily need to be inside of a church to feel that. Don't get me wrong. I do like going to church every now and then. I love the music aspect. If I can say I miss anything, I miss praise dancing. I love praise dancing.
Yes, me too, bro.
Like, it's definitely stuff like that I feel like, you can't really take away or change, or, I don't know if I can implement that on a day-to-day basis. I don't know if it will be the same. But I really wish people would understand, spirituality and faith is really yours and what you make it. It's not about following like rules and just trying to be what somebody else wants you to be or do what they want you to do.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say spirituality is there is no, I don't think it's a book to it. I really think it has to be, that's why they say the relationship with God is the most important, because that's how you see how it's supposed to look for you. And I think the minute you start looking at, well, such and such did it this way, you just get off track. It's literally contrary to what relationship means, to do it the religious way, I would say.
But that's why I'm saying I feel like I hate that certain rules only apply to certain things, because I feel like that's all throughout the Bible about, having those conversations with God, or just even some of the stories in the Bible about, certain people going to God, about them being upset with God, about them questioning God. It's right there in the text, but somehow we're taught that we are not supposed to do that.
You're not supposed to do that.
And I'm just like, how? Such and such did it? Like, like, why they get to do it? Because they in the Bible? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't like stuff like that. Now, something popped in my mind that I feel like we cannot answer.
Okay.
So, because we are so into astrology,